Probably a good thing I put slow-mo on. That should stop spam. I feel bad that people on the stream have to wait 40 seconds to send another message, but I feel like I had no choice. It's to stop the spammers. Hey, best friend! Thank you! And look what my cousin got me. This Joker, based on the, what's it called? Day of the Dead is Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, a celebration in Mexico. Looks like from the Day of the Dead. Yeah, it is, best friend. I know it looks a little bit like the Batman animated series Joker. I think that's what it's supposed to resemble. Yeah, exactly. It's what they do on that holiday. They decorate skulls and stuff. At night time, this guy is gonna glow in the dark. It's gonna be so cool. And here's my Joker wig. It's not the best wig, but it was a rather low price, and it was in Australia, so yeah. And also, I've already got 2 pairs of Joker gloves, but here's some gloves. I also got that with it, and come on. Squirting flour. There's nothing in it at the moment. You gotta put water in it. And also, yeah, stick it to the lapel of the suit. So, best friend, I hope you understand the slow mode thing that I've put on. I've done that to stop spammers. Because when you've got like 5 million messages going every few seconds, it's impossible to enjoy the stream or even chat to people. This will prevent that from happening. 14 seconds is not that long. Okay, I'm going to continue watching this while waiting for others to show up.
Looking at his entire history and discussing design, personality, and thematic changes across nearly 100 years of stories, films, and TV series. In this edition of Explaining Disney.
Explaining Disney? Oh, is this guy an Aussie? 1926, 2021. Whoo! I understand. Plus, you can see my messages when it's in slow motion. Exactly, best friend. It actually makes it a lot more easy. Hey, is that a red Solo cup? Disney's oldest character. Wonder what else. Ooh, evolution of Snoopy, Charlie Brown, and Peanuts. Gee. Whoa, this is some old stuff. Tom and Jerry, the Flintstones, SpongeBob, the Addams Family.
Alexander Milne, better known as A. Milne, was employed as a staff writer and assistant editor.
I can't believe it's that old.
Punch, for which he wrote as noted by the Encyclopedia Britannica, many humorous verse and whimsical essays. Following a stint in the British Army during World War I,
I'm gonna buy some tortoises. How is Joker doing on this fine day? Oh, very relaxed, my dear. Had a long day, had a nice lunch, had some fun.
wrote propaganda articles for the War Office's MI7, and upon discharge in 1919 turned to dramatic writing, by his early 40s establishing himself as a prolific and critically acclaimed novelist, playwright and screenwriter. In August of 1920, Milne's wife Daphne gave birth to their only child, Christopher Robin Milne. Milne turned to writing light verse poems and nursery rhymes for his son, many of which incorporating him into their stories. Milne's first stories were published in Punch, accompanied by illustrations.
Shut up!
Artist E.H. Shepard.
They argue over the stupidest things.
When they proved successful, they were subsequently collected in the 1924 children's book, When We Were Very Young. The most notable poem from this collection was Teddy Bear, the story of a short and fat teddy bear named Mr. Edward Bear, inspired by one of Christopher's favourite toys.
And we know who that would become.
Christopher had several favourite toys, also including Piglet the pig, Tigger the tiger, Eeyore the donkey, and a mother and child kangaroo pair named Kanga and Roo.
Those toys look worn out.
Success of When We Were Very Young, Milne published a short story collection titled Winnie the Pooh in 1926. The book was titled after Christopher's bear, who he'd recently renamed Winnie after a black bear who was a popular resident of the London Zoo. Winnie had been left at the zoo by Canadian.
Do people have any
Senator
idea how
Harry
dangerous
Coleman,
bears
who rescued
are?
her and named
Especially
her after
black
his home
bears?
city of Winnipeg, Manitoba,
American black
during
bears?
World War I. The Pooh portion was taken from a name Christopher had given to a swan he regularly fed during a family holiday.
Aww.
Milne noted in the book's introduction, when we said goodbye, we took the name with us, as we didn't think the swan would want it anymore. The book specifically collected tales of Christopher Robin, Pooh, and the other toys, all of whom came to life in the enchanted 100-acre wood, inspired by
In the pic of
Ashdown
Yumi and
Forest,
Joker,
nearby
Joker looks like
Milne's
he's up
East
to no
Sussex
good.
woodland
Looking at
cottage, where
Lisa.
real-life Christopher played with his toys. While Tigger didn't make an appearance in this book, two characters were created for it, a rabbit named Rabbit and an owl named Owl, whom Milne would call his own unaided work. The book was again beautifully decorated by Shepard, with now iconic crosshatch etchings, establishing the look and design of the characters and their playground. These whimsical stories of childlike innocence quickly captured the imagination of British children during the dark days which followed the war, with the book selling over 50,000 copies in its first 8 weeks in Britain and a further 150,000 in its first year in the USA. Pooh became an instant cultural phenomenon, and Milne and Shepard collaborated on 2 further books, Now We Are 6, in which Pooh and friends appeared in 11 of 35 collected verses, and 1928's The House at Pooh Corner, a Winnie the Pooh sequel.
I can't believe he's 95 years old.
Centric stories, which finally introduced Tigger into text.
Wonder if anyone else will come to the chat.
Due to continued popularity, Milne penned a stage play titled Winnie the Pooh Party, presented as a one-off charity performance in London. And in 1931, the popular Sue Hastings marionettes staged performances in New York. The UK's BBC presented a radio play in 1926, and the Columbia Broadcasting System presented one in the USA in 1932. Likewise, records featuring the stories were pressed as early as 1932. Notable early recordings included a 1951 story reading by American actor Jimmy Stewart and a 1956 reading by British performer Maurice Evans. In fact, one 1930s vinyl release, Winnie the Pooh Songs, featured the first colour artwork of the characters, with US merchandiser and father of the licensing industry, Stephen Schlesinger.
What do you call a cow lying on the grass?
Look quickly became the standard and was featured across various merchandise throughout the 30s and 40s. When Shepard's illustrations were colorized in the 70s, this iconic look was depicted in the books for the first time. In the 40s, the stories were more popular than
Wait, I thought he was coloured in the 60s.
ever, and Christopher Robin Milne's original toys toured the
What
USA
about the Disney
insured
version?
for $50,000.
Even
close to
though
$1
they're
million
just
in
toys?
today's dollars, and eventually
Toys
found
like that be worth
residency
so
in
much money
New York City,
nowadays.
where they remain today. In 1952, Pooh made the jump to moving pictures in a puppetry series produced for BBC television. Considered lost media, all that
Creepy
remains of the
looking.
program is this image. Radio Times magazine at the time described it as
Oh,
a series of
bother.
programs based on the Milne stories, with at least 6
21%.
episodes adapting various passages from the books. In 1960, Pooh and the Gang appeared in a special episode of NBC's Shirley Temple's Storybook, which similarly adapted
Shirley Temple. Well, know the joke or not? Never heard of it before, best friend. Oh yeah. Never heard of it before. I'm gonna get my iPad on the charger. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? God damn it, where are you? Is everything okay? Oh, there it is. Sorry, kid, but you don't have to join me. Is everything okay? Have one of your little Winnie fights. Okay. Hello, Gotham. Joker's back in town. Ground beef. Oh, I've heard that joke before. I wonder if anyone else is going to come to the chat. It seems quite a vacant.
numerous Pooh stories
It's
into
just you
live
and me,
action
best
for
friend.
American audiences. All the classic characters appeared throughout the hour-long production, enacted by marionette puppets made and operated by Bill and Cora Bard. They were voiced
Pretty
by
good,
Franz
though, for
Faz
puppets.
Fazekis, who would later go on to work for the Jim Henson Company and lend his name to another famous pair, the Muppets Fozzie. Thanks for...
Cool. I don't know what's up with this wig. All the hair's all messed up and everything. I think I need to straighten it. Yeah, they are, best friend. Oh, someone else is here.
to the global leader.
Okay, someone else is on the chat. Come on, show yourself. Who is it? Oh, Alleycat GTZ. Oh, okay. Thank you, Alleycat GTZ. Oh, I know what to hear at the moment because I have to be quiet. Oh, that's understandable. Oh, it's raining? Wow, it's actually hot over here, best friend.
Of family entertainment, Pooh soon made a more substantial leap to the screen. Walt Disney had in fact been trying to get his hands on story and character rights to Pooh for decades, first approaching Milne's agents in 1938 when looking for popular stories to adapt.
Wonder how he would have looked if he was animated in the 1930s.
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. But it wasn't until 1961, 5 years after Milne's passing, that Disney was able to secure them from the Milne estate.
So that's how they got
them.
him.
3 years to break a deal with Schlesinger for US merchandising rights and production on Disney.
We know who the owner of the character really is. Hair's a bit of a mess, but still looks Jokerish. At least I don't look like Jared Leto's Joker. Why can't I free your doubtful mind and melt your cold heart? Hope that was a good birthday. I had a great one on Alley Cat GTZ. Frick. I do not have a cold heart. I think I'm actually starting to like this wig a lot more now. Is it supposed to do that? Thank you, best friend. Because when I first got it, I was a little bit worried about the quality of it. Like, James Marcel said, it didn't really look exactly like the Arkham Jokers, but I still think it's a good wig. Nonetheless, it's still Jokerish. Thank you, Greaves. You can't get that little curl down that the Arkham Joker has. Oh, jeez. The least I can do was make it spikier or flatten it out. I think what I need to do is straighten it somehow or adjust the locks of hair. It's synthetic hair. Maybe slip it down more. It's got the Windows peak, which is nice. I'm glad it does, best friend. Okay, so I want to spike it up, but I don't want to make it look really messy. I know the Arkham Joker has a lot of spikes in his hair, but I don't want to go overboard. Some hair might be tangled up or something. Maybe I'm better off just keeping it like this. That's what I need to do. It needs to be more spiky at the end. 3 people here. I wonder who else. Oh, yeah, of course. There's Greaves, my best friend, and Alley Cat GTZ.
Disney's proposed Pooh feature was delayed until 1964. Once storyboarding had begun, Disney realized that perhaps Milne's stories didn't work in the format. John Corley, ex-Disney archivist, noted that Disney felt the stories were too light and whimsical, while author and historian Brian Sibley observed Disney was concerned that they didn't easily provide the characteristic plot essentials usually found in his features, romance and drama, with some element of peril and the inevitable threat of a villain. So instead of a feature film, Walt settled on creating a featurette, a 25-minute extended short that could run before a feature in theatres. If this performed well with audiences, he could return to a feature at a later date, treating the featurette as a prelude. To form the featurette's basis, Walt took the first third of his planned movie, based on the first 2 chapters of Winnie the Pooh, and titled it Winnie the Pooh and the Honey Tree, even removing the hyphens from the name. Disney wanted to stay true to the ideals, tones, and spirit presented in Milne's books, as well as to the visual style of Shepard's illustrations, something he paid special attention to following the backlash from British audiences who believed his 1951 Alice in Wonderland was too Americanized and unfaithful to Lewis Carroll's stories. Disney wanted to keep characters visually similar, though animators found that the one-dimensional crosshatch etchings of the books didn't translate well to a 3-dimensional space. As such, they were made a little rounder, so they could be moved in more flexible positions and shown at various angles. To compensate, animators employed inking techniques to give backgrounds a crosshatch feel.
That's how people did it back then. That's how they did
Inspired
those
by
animations.
Sibley's words, the symbiotic
That would have been hard
relationship
work.
between Milne's writings
It's not like
and
digital
Shepard's line
art.
illustrations. The stories were told through the physical medium of the books, with characters moving through pages and interacting with text. Regardless, artist Ralph Wright noted that Disney still wanted the features to be understandable to the American audience, so gave story and animation duties to artists who worked.
Oh, best friend, I loved it. Like all your drawings. By the way, at some point tonight, can I make a new drawing request? Like, I know you've already did a birthday drawing for me, but I wouldn't mind asking for another one at some point. Yeah, I think this Joker wig is good. I think it looks nice when it's all flattened. Not too spiky and stuff. Pretty much like the Arkham Joker. Windows peak included. This part. I can't pronounce that name. I would assume it's Russian. Varktek. Welcome to the chat. Whoever you are. Sorry, I can't pronounce your name.
Fans of the books, fearing that those who were would stay too true to the source and not be receptive to slightly Americanizing and Disneyfying the featurette. The team ultimately worked on small departures, including the addition of gags that wouldn't feel out of place in Disney's comedic cartoon shorts, and brand new songs by studio songsmiths Robert and Richard Sherman. Most controversially, however, Disney added a gopher with a thick Southern American accent to the cast and hired an American child, Bruce Reitherman, son of the film's director Wolfgang Wooly Reitherman, as the voice of Christopher Robin. Bringing life to Pooh was American actor and
Look, he's taking a bite out of that man's shoulder.
After the character's trademark silky smooth vocalization. When the featurette was
I'm not surprised, it is a bear.
Released in 1966 alongside live-action feature The Ugly Dachshund, Walt's fears were realised, with British press not too favourable of it. One critic from The Mail described it as an extraordinary attack on one of the last remnants of the British Empire, and Shepard himself called it a complete travesty. Critics complained that Disney managed to add an American gopher but couldn't find space for Piglet or Tigger. One critic's campaign to have Christopher Robin redubbed by a British child proved successful, as the film was recalled from Britain and reworked before wide release.
Ruddy critics.
Regardless, it was a hit with audiences, and soon after, Pooh was even introduced to the Disney parks as a creepy roaming character. Shortly before his death that year, Disney greenlit a second featurette, which ultimately became the studio's first production without him. Winnie the Pooh and the Blustery Day utilised the second part of Disney's planned featurette and was based on 7 stories from across both Pooh books. Reitherman now oversaw production and, in an attempt to be more faithful, placed Milne fans on the story team, hired British child John Walmsley to play Christopher Robin, found space for Piglet and Tigger, and demoted Gopher to a small cameo. On release in 1968, alongside live-action feature The Horse in the Grey Flannel Suit, the featurette was an incredible success, even with the British, and won that year's Academy Award.
Yeah, you can't make something British way too American. Sometimes they don't like that, I guess. I don't know. Something that critics do, I think. They seem to attack things that were originally made in their own country, and people sometimes Americanize it or something, and they don't like that. I can understand now what they did.
For Best Animated Short Film, its success cemented Winnie the Pooh as synonymous with the Disney brand.
Yeah, but he didn't originate in Disney at first. He originated in the children's books.
However, another non-Disney Pooh production spawned a year later in Communist Russia. Having only recently allowed publication of the books, Pooh was a new sensation in the Soviet Union, and officials approved production of a
That doesn't
series
even look
of
like a bear. That looks like a raccoon with no tail.
adaptations. Produced in a cheap, limited style, animator Theodore Kipchuk and Sawyer'smont Film Studios brought a scrappiness to their
I think I might look at something different.
Pete is the oldest continuously recurring character of the Walt Disney Company and the first ever Disney villain. And over the course of 94 years has undergone some of the most radical changes and evolutions of any Disney character, having undergone changes in character and animation design, personality, name, and even species. While he is usually depicted as a villain, it's perhaps more fair to call him an antagonist. His shorts and films have seen him ranging from a ruthless criminal outlaw to a pesky authoritative figure to a plain and simple nuisance and everything in between, often changing his name and persona to fit each narrative. Pete has not only featured as the adversary or foil of Mickey, Goofy, Donald, Oswald, and Alice over the years, but also as their antithesis.
Wait, that's the same character? I never knew that.
As the polar opposite of those he comes up against. In this video, I will trace the evolution of Pete right from his...
That's a bear. Claire's hair. Thank you. This Joker wig I'm wearing was a birthday present. Sorry if it's a little bit messy. I'm not going to be a snack. Pardon me.
First appearance in 1925 to today in 2019. To do so, we will look at the most drastic and important changes prevalent across more than 9
Removing the
decades
cat
of
tail.
shorts and series. In this edition of Explaining Disney. Pete was first introduced as an antagonist in 1925 short Alice Solves the Puzzle, the 14th short in Walt Disney's first series of shorts, the Alice Comedies. In this short,
Seriously?
Pete appears as Bootleg
What is
Pete,
up with
a nice
comedies
bear who
with
gets
the
in the way of
cartoons
Alice
back then?
solving a
There were
crossword
no
puzzle
rules.
by trying to steal it for his collection of rare crossword puzzles. Alright, perhaps not the pinnacle of Disney
It doesn't look like a
storytelling.
peg.
The short introduces
That
us
looks
to the
like
militant, troublemaking
half
Mickey.
of
In this short,
the
Pete
candle holder in one of the
more
in the
animalistic
back
than he liked
room.
incarnations, and can be
Looks
seen
like someone's
with
just
his
taken the
often
top
defining
half of it
characteristic
off.
of his character design. In 1925,
That's what it looks
Alice
like to me.
wins the Derby. Pete makes his second appearance.
Or a
However,
toilet
this
plunger. Yay! Why did you say pardon me? I don't get it. Lol, I just sneezed. Well, Joker licked his lips and then realized that Lisa's probably watching him. And he's like, uh-oh, I don't want him to know that I want heater.
time he is seen without his peg leg. I must note that throughout Pete's 94-year history,
Doesn't really
he's
look like the
sometimes
character
depicted
at
with his
all.
peg leg
Which
and sometimes
one?
without.
Is it the bear or the
It's said that
cat?
at various points throughout his history, either animators forgot which leg was supposed to be peg leg, so they omitted it altogether.
That's a
or
bear.
felt that the shtick
That's
was just
clearly a bear.
exaggerated and painful to watch. It is interesting, however, to see that this
Bear, dog,
strange
cat.
trend
Make up your
has
mind,
extended
Disney.
right back to his second appearance. By Pete's fourth appearance in 1925, short Alice Picks the Champ, of which only a few minutes still exist, he is for the first time ever depicted as wearing pants. The first step towards a more humanized anthropomorphic character, marking one of the very first examples of a Disney animal appearing in clothing. In this short, he appears in a more aggressive manner, showing the first signs of a...
There is party food for you to eat, Joker. Don't want it. Leave it for the kiddies.
Violent personality. In 1925's Alice's Tin Pony, Pete takes his hostility to a whole new level, appearing for the first time in a more villainous role, as Pete and his gang of thieves attempt to rob a train.
Hey, I know that cat. He was in another one of the Alice shorts.
Pete's peg leg is back, and he is seen for the first
What's his
time
name,
wearing
though?
a hat, another defining characteristic of his design. Pete's most iconic hat design, however, would first be seen in 1926's Alice on the Farm. Though Pete's hat would quickly become a staple of his character design, his peg leg would continue to come and go somewhat randomly throughout the remainder of his appearances in the Alice comedies. Pete appeared in a total of 19 Alice comedies between 1925
But what's
and
the cat's
1927,
name?
many of which have sadly
Because he's
been
appeared
lost
in
to
a lot of
time.
those.
Walt Disney's second short series, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, came about after interest and creativity began to wane in the Alice comedies. Pete would transition over into...
Not me, you wouldn't. Eat that or starve, Joker.
In the seventh short, Over the Top, where Walt Disney decided Oswald needed an antagonist. Instead of creating a new one, he decided to once again use Pete, referred to in the Oswalds as Putrid Pete. Though here, Pete appears with a more stylized design. He's taller, skinnier, and seems not to resemble a bear as much as he once did. You'll notice here that he appears with his peg leg and now
Looks like a rat or a dog.
But also appears in a vest and white gloves, which would become a staple of his design, but not for many years. Pete would go on to feature in 10 out of the 27 Disney Oswalds, many of which have also been lost, much like the many Alice
The character
comedies.
looks really
Pete would
different.
appear mostly the same in all of his Oswald appearances, with the only major difference being his constantly changing leg. By 1928, Ozzy of
This
the
is
Mountain
before Mickey
was
Mouse
finally
even
depicted
existed.
in a larger stature with a more bulbous stomach, and was drawn in a pair of large overalls, which would also become iconic of the character design.
Little
Pete's final
tail
appearance in
must be a
Disney
bear.
Oswald short came in 1928's Hungry Hobos. During this same year, the Disney Oswald series
Oh my
came
gosh, I didn't know cows could stretch their neck like that.
end when Universal Pictures,
That's
who owned the
freaky.
rights to the Oswald character in cartoons, established
Most of us want to know our bodies better, so we can be at our best.
I'm good at smirking.
their own animation studio and stole the Oswald series along with most of Walt Disney's animators away from him. Universal would keep the series in production for almost another 10
It feels a
years
little bit
under the
itchy.
direction of Walter Lantz. In response, Disney started up yet another short series focusing on a troublemaking little mouse named Mickey. For Mickey's second produced short,
He was very
Goucho,
abrasive back then.
Walt called for the introduction of a villain and thus introduced a newly stylized version of Pete. The new Pete now appeared much larger in height and size, and though he had no peg leg, he sported those iconic overalls and hat. Pete also transitioned from being a bear to a cat, and as a result gained a more cat-like face with whiskers and scruffy ears.
Definitely a
as well as
cat.
a long tail. Pete would consequently appear in Steamboat Willie, the third produced yet first released.
But in this one, he's just driving the boat.
Design. While Pete remained nameless in these early shorts and went under the name Terrible Tom in early comic strips, the character is undoubtedly the same from the original Alice and Oswald, albeit with some cosmetic changes. In 1929's The Barn Dance, he would gain long white gloves before being transitioned into
I will be very hard to swallow, Joker, as I won't cooperate. Is that so? You're lucky I had a big meal. Very lucky. I'll read her eventually.
short white gloves in Barnyard Battle. In 1930's The Cactus Kid, he would once again take on the name Peg Leg Pete. Well, technically in this short, Peg Leg Pedro, and would finally be reunited with his peg leg. This would also be the first time Pete is seen wearing shoes. Here, Pete would once again be depicted as an outlaw villain against hero Mickey. Conversely, in Pete's following appearance in 1930's The Chain Gang, the roles are reversed. Mickey is depicted as a prison inmate, while Pete is depicted as a ruthless prison warden, as he takes on the opposite role of Mickey. Regardless whether criminal or authority figure, Pete is always seen as the bad guy of the film. One obscure detail that I think is interesting to note is that while Walt continued to legally use the character of Peg Leg Pete, Universal continued to legally use him too, as he would feature in occasional
Really?
Oswald
Is that like
cartoons right
stealing?
up until 1937, and even strangely transitioning into a rabbit at one point.
What?
This would make Pete practically one of the only cartoon characters to ever be utilized by two separate studios simultaneously.
How'd they get away with that? Leave Gotham forever? Not happening, my dear.
And is a great example of just how murky copyright laws were at the time. By 1932,
Copyright laws were different back then.
The Klondike Kid, Pete was once again featured in his outlaw persona and underwent a slight redesign. As artist Norm Ferguson, a talented character artist,
He's got him by the
refining
nose.
his facial structure in an effort to award the character more personality. To do so, Ferguson used actor Wallace Berry as his inspiration. In this short, Pete took on the persona of Pierre the Trapper. Between 1932 and 1934, Pete's design remained practically the same, though he would often be featured in different costumes depending on his role in any given short. By this stage, Pete had started to more closely resemble the big bad that we all know and love. Note his protruding face and whiskers.
Now he looks more like how he does today. It is happening. I got the tickets. And I'll take those tickets and tear them up.
Lively and emotive appearance. In 1932's The Mad Dog, Pete would speak his first words provided by Walt Disney himself.
Of course he's going to do that. That's him for crying out loud, not just some random dog catcher. Of course he was going to do that to poor Pluto.
Though voice actor Billy Bletcher would take over voicing duties on the character from 1934's Shanghai, introducing his classic large, booming voice.
Get below you, swab!
In that same year's The Dog Napper, he would not only go up against Mickey Mouse, but also Donald Duck for the first time. 1935's Mickey's Service Station would see Pete go up against Mickey, Donald, and Goofy in the trio's first classic team-up cartoon, as Pete takes on the role of an obnoxious, disgruntled customer. It's interesting to note that in this short, as well as in a couple of others, Pete speaks with a somewhat foreign accent, despite still being voiced by Billy Bletcher.
I'll be back in 10 minutes.
This short would mark Pete's fun.
Looks like I'm going to have to quit the live stream, best friend. But don't worry, I'll hopefully return after dinner. I'll see you very soon.